I'll start because I was at 7:30.
Good evening, ladies, and welcome to another edition of Workshop Wednesdays. Tonight, the topic is I'm a Survivor, and we're joined tonight with two of our sisters that are survivors of breast cancer. And so we're going to have an opportunity to get to know a little bit about them, and hopefully we will be encouraged to be able to celebrate just celebrate the theme of survivorship and how, you know, the things that we go through as women. So we're very excited about that. But before we move forward, we have our co-founder, Stephanie Montgomery, who's going to bring us some announcements.
Yes. Hello, Sestras. Welcome to another Wednesday, Workshop Wednesday. And we just want to say hello to many of our new members and some of our Sestras that have been with us for a while. Thank you for all that you do every day and helping us to promote our brand. Just to update you, our app is at the end stage of development. We are thinking it should be ready for download from the Apple and the Google store by August 1st, if not sooner. And also we have other exciting news. We're soon to announce the date and time for our app launch party, which will be in August, an in-person New York event. So look out for that announcement, and all of our sisters that are in the New York or metropolitan area, we want to see you there. And those that we're going to give you this information in enough time, so those that are all around the world, if you want to come to the city and join us, you can do so. You can just reach out to Annette and I, and let us know. So this will be an opportunity for vendors, women vendors in the area, to have a booth, and we can do what we do via Session Now, is showcase your business product and service to the world. Understand we will be going live, you know, at that event via YouTube, as well as we expect to, our plan is to have media presence. So this is going to be a big event. So this is your time to come out and show us all about what you do, and also to connect with sisters that you've only connected with virtually. I'm looking forward to, Annette and I are looking forward to meeting all of you in person. So again, for right now, the Facebook group is where we will be posting these announcements. And just so you know, every Wednesday now, we will be doing our Workshop Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And also on Sundays, one of our sisters, Charlene, hosts our Self-Care Sundays at 8 p.m. on Sunday. So don't miss out to those recurring events. And that being said, again, stay in touch with us via the Facebook group, inbox us. We can always be reached at info@sessionnow.com if you have any questions or you want to participate, or if you want to host a Workshop Wednesday. That being said, I'm going to give it back to our host, our co-founder, Annette Hicks-Gill, so that they can begin this very, very important panel discussion.
Hey, before I go on, I'm noticing that you have a long sleeve Session Now t-shirt. I don't have one of those. I need to get me one. I love it. I love it.
Special, but you know what? We can talk about that because I connected with someone that's going to have our merchandise, so we will be announcing that as well. So we'll talk about it at our Pride meeting tomorrow. How we're set with that. Okay. Thanks for noticing.
Okay, nice. I only have short sleeve t-shirts. Okay, so ladies, we have Patrice Jean-Baptiste and we have Harriet Williams. Harriet Williams is one of our Pride members, and she's also one of the board of directors for our Session Now Foundation. And Patrice has been part of the leadership for our 1,000 Women campaign. She served on the real estate team. And so, you know, these are two wonderful women that have contributed, that continue to contribute so many ways to our sisterhood and to the community at large. And so I'm going to turn it over to you guys at this time, because I want you to be able to just tell your story. I do have 4 questions. I limited it to 4 to give you an opportunity to be able to take it, you know, just take it where you want to take it. We're just looking forward to, we know that there's so many women that are struggling with this issue. So, you know, there's the piece of it is prevention, and then there's going through it, and then there's life, you know, living with it. Some people, it's a lifestyle. And, you know, it's just prayerfully, and we're so grateful that you are 2 survivors. And so we look forward to hearing your story. So if we could hear first from Harriet.
Thank you, Annette. And I'm excited to just kind of talk a little bit about my story. Do you want me to respond to the questions or just?
Well, the question, I'm going to kind of go in order of the questions.
Okay.
So
I'll just say a little bit about myself then. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2013. In October, I found the lump myself doing an everyday kind of exam. I didn't think at first that it was cancer, and the reason for that was that I was pretty cystic, and whenever I would menstruate, the cyst would go away, and this was one that decided to stay a little bit longer than what it was supposed to be there. So it's been 10 years. I'm literally at the 10-year mark where they begin monitoring you, I think, just slightly differently, just because at 10 years is when you can begin to see a reoccurrence. And my treatment included a lumpectomy, a bilateral breast reduction, chemo, radiation, and I can't remember the name of the medication, but I took a medication as well post-treatment. And I'll say more as we get into the questions.
Okay, thank you. And now we have Patrice.
Okay. Hi, ladies. Briefly, I'm going to show you my hair because I'm getting it braided. My name is Patrice Jean Baptiste. I am, I would say, a 9-year survivor, but I was first diagnosed with breast cancer in 2011. I had what you call ductal breast cancer. It was in the milk duct. They did a lumpectomy, and subsequently I was supposed to follow up every 6 months. And as life happens, you get complacent, you don't follow through with the visits. My ex-sister-in-law called me in August of 2014 to tell me she just had bilateral mastectomies because of breast cancer. And that said to me, hey, you know what? Get on the board, go get tested again, have your mammogram done and see what happens. And I went immediately that September, came back positive, but it was in the right breast, not the left breast. And my surgeon said the best thing for me to do was to have bilateral mastectomy. So I did it. But however, just so you understand, I did not have the same history as Harriet. It wasn't because I had a lump that made me follow through. It was because when I went for my mastectomy, it was detected that there was some kind of growth in the milk duct. And therefore, that put me on the radar for breast cancer.
And I think I wanted to say the distinction that Patrice just made is a really important one, because there are different types of breast cancer that you can have. And the treatment for each of them is really different. And so I think, being able to, as much as you can, do the things that the doctors are asking you to do, even if it seems different than what you might be accustomed to when it comes to breast cancer. I think that that's really important.
Hey, thank you, ladies. The first question I have is, what is one thing you wish you knew before you started treatment? And either one of you can begin.
Let me say, I did not require treatment. Not that I didn't require it, but I chose not to have it. So when you have ductal breast cancer, if the cancer is located strictly in the milk duct, they can just remove the milk duct and you could just continue to be followed up with your physician. They can do tests to see whether or not the cancer has spread by removing a lymph node. That wasn't required at the time, so I did not do it. but every breast cancer situation is different. Not everybody will require treatment. My take is on the treatment issue is that ask questions, do your homework. That's the most important part, knowing what it is that you're dealing with. Don't think any question is stupid or not necessary to ask. It is your journey. Breast cancer is unique to each and every woman that goes through breast cancer. And make sure, you know, you're comfortable with the answer that you're given.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. I think the one thing that I would do differently is I went to my first couple of appointments by myself because I didn't know that it was going to be cancer, right? Like I didn't know that that was going to be the answer. Like, you know, again, based on the way it felt, it didn't feel any different from what I had experienced before with cysts in my breasts. And so, you know, when the diagnosis happened, it was very sterile. There was no one that I loved next to me holding my hand. And so I think that like, you know, being able to have like your tribe around you is probably a really good thing. I agree with everything that Patrice said about like getting the answers that I think that sometimes you just don't even know what questions to ask. And I would say that for me, that moment, another moment of sort of regret, I would say was, so when you like, when you go through the type of breast cancer that I had, which was, testosterone and progesterone positive, when you go through that, there are lots of different people who talk to you. And they tend to talk to you in these, it felt to me like these like really, really white rooms where the light was really white and all of the furniture was really white. And then it just felt like whooshing noise. And so
having an aesthetic, right?
Right. So having that, you know, having that experience, I think, you know, if I could do things differently, if I knew then what I know now, I like the moment I suspected it, I would make sure that someone was next to me, you know, through those conversations, because I think I probably missed a lot of information as well.
Yeah, because you're in a fog when you find out. It's like, what is it you're saying to me? Like, it's shock. You're in a state of shock, and having a support system there is very important. And what Harriet is saying is so true. I was blessed and lucky enough to have a girlfriend that went with me when my surgeon had to talk to me and tell me that my breast was no good, and that because it was my second time, I should just have the bilateral mastectomy. But I'm glad because I'm here. I realized that my having breasts was not what defined me. I know that's how we associate ourselves as women, but being able to live and have life and to live it abundantly and do the things you want to do, be there for your family, your children, you know, your loved ones. And the support system is so important to have.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. You know, a confession, I had my very first mammogram this year. And wow. I am 48 years old. And it's not something I'm proud of, but, you know, and my family has very cystic breasts. Like that's just something that we have. And so
it's a Black woman thing, I think.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
And so I finally did, was it this year? Maybe it was last year. Maybe it was last year. Yeah, it was last year. And I was so embarrassed, but I did it anyway. And I saw a flyer in my church bulletin that one of the congressmen was, you know, having the screening. And it's not even, you know, I'm from Queens, it was not even in my area. And I said, you know what, this is a sign, I just need to do it. And so, of course, you know, you go through the process and they found something. And so then it's like, you start thinking, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? I still have small, you know, just all the different things that go on. But so this is just something that touches us, you know, this touches us all. And, you know, thankfully with my follow-up, everything was okay, but that scare is real, you know, that weight.
Yes.
That weight is.
And I think a lot of people avoid doing the mammogram, which is just such a lifesaver. Like honestly, like I think that the mammogram, you know, what we hear growing up is like whispers, right? Like, oh, it's going to be the most horrible thing you've ever. It really isn't. Like, there are things that are more horrible than a mammogram. Like, having cancer is worse than a mammogram. I mean, like, I'm just being real about that, right? And so, you know, for I literally just had my annual mammogram yesterday. And the 10 minutes that it takes for someone to, you know, put you in that awkward, uncomfortable position is such a, and I'm not saying this in any way to like shame anyone. I'm just saying, like, for anyone out there who's like, oh, I need to do that, but I don't know. Like, I think that, like, just the, you know, knowing how advanced science is right now, you know, how much information and how customized the treatment can be based on the type and the, you know, the severity, I think, of your cancer is such a good thing. But also, you know, just knowing that you cleared that screen is also just such a relief, because then you don't have those question marks over your head, you know, like every time you see that sign that you should get one, right? Like it's such a lifesaver. And, you know, and what they're finding is that, you know, women need to do that earlier or sooner and sooner. I mean, I think that, you know, years ago, like there was no reason why I would have been getting a mammogram at 40, right? But now that's the recommendation. And so I think, and also one of my favorite things about getting a mammogram is there's no copay.
Yeah, you could go as many times as necessary.
That there's no copay. And so, you know, like if you're thinking about the expense, if you have insurance, you should definitely take advantage of that, because it is a lifesaver.
And actually I went on a free trailer kind of thing, even though I have insurance. Yeah, but that definitely motivated me to take it.
Yeah. You know, the thing about breast cancer is, let me say, I don't have a history of it in my family.
Me either.
And, you know, anyone can get breast cancer, anyone. And the most important thing is if your breast feels different. I mean, we wash ourselves every day. So if your breast becomes so tender, it's not time for your cycle, you didn't get injured in any way, that's a flag. Mm-hmm. Get yourself checked. Better to be checked and know it's nothing than to second guess yourself without the knowledge or without the access of having a medical screening to tell you that it's nothing.
Yes.
That's the words you want to hear. That your breasts are normal, that there's no cancer cells, there's nothing. And the thing is, understand this, ladies, they do tell you if you have precancer cells. Mm-hmm. So let me take it back a little further. In 2005, I did a breast reduction. And Annette knows I had these big, humongous breasts on this little small body. I hated it. And I had a reduction. And at the time, the doctor told me I had precancer cells in my breast. So if you're told you have precancer cells, it's important that you keep following up and making sure that those cells didn't start to multiply and become cancerous.
That's a great tip. That's a great tip. I didn't even know about the pre-cancer cell thing.
Yeah, you have, the cells don't just start as cancer cells. They multiply. It's a growth. If there's different types of cancers. So you have to find out whether or not, you know, what you have is malignant. It may be benign. So there's just so much that you can find out.
So moving on to question number 2, what was your biggest self-discovery or revelation after you were diagnosed?
For me, I think that it led to me really reevaluating just my life in general and like what was important to me. And, you know, at the time, my son was, I think, in his first or second year of college. My daughter was still in high school. And that, you know, my family was important. And so being able to like, I think just focus on that or refocus on that was really important. And it really did change my life. Like, I would say that prior to being diagnosed with cancer, I was like, I am rising to the top. I will be there by next year, right? And after that, I was like, is that really what I want? Like, you know, what I really want is to be healthy and to be alive and to be here, you know. And so that, I think that like having that moment where things just in an instant shift for you was probably the most impactful thing about my treatment and my, you know, my diagnosis.
Would you like to respond to that, Patrice? Your biggest self-discovery or revelation?
My self-discovery was that I was stronger than I believed I was. That after facing the journey, because breast cancer is a journey. I use the word journey, and you're gonna hear that throughout this discussion that we're having, that, you know, it's a period of hopelessness. You live with a fear because once you're diagnosed with it, it's like, am I gonna get it again? But it made me realize that, you know, I have to live my life, you know, unapologetically, the best way that I can, because life is really that precious, and that if I can survive breast cancer, I don't think I can't survive anything else. I think that it has made me feel stronger and more aware of my health, the different medical issues that we go through, not just breast cancer, but that, you know, we can survive anything. I can survive anything.
Yeah, I love that.
It definitely helped me with my faith, recognizing and trusting in God for anything. That is not just saying it, but it's really believing it and living it.
Yes. Thank you for saying that part, Patrice. Like, I think that, like, cancer was the thing that brought me back to God, actually, and in a really interesting way. Like, I had actually, during the same period of time, I had 3 other friends that were all diagnosed with different types and stages of breast cancer. And one of the first one of them, I remember talking to her one day in my kitchen. I was on the phone with her, and, you know, and she was going through cancer treatment at the time. I think she was stage 3B when she received, which is a fairly serious form of cancer just basically means that it's moved into different parts of your body. And she was listing to me all of the things that she was going to be doing that week with different people. And I was like, what? Like, you're like, everything that you're saying to me is just exhausting. And she said, and she said to me, I was like, how can you even do all this? And she said, Harriet, and she was, I want to add that because I feel like I want to add this because I think that we can learn from anyone. She was like 10 or 15 years younger than me. So she was a fairly young woman at the time when she, was diagnosed. She had literally just had a baby.
Wow.
And she goes, Harriet, people want to help and they don't know how to. So when someone offers to do something for me, I just say yes. And so I was like, can I do that? Can I just, I'm like such an introvert and I'm like, can I just say yes to people? I mean, okay, I'll try it. And so the thing that people wanted to give me the most was prayer. And that I was like, okay, I mean, it's not going to hurt me if you pray for me.
Nope.
If anything. And then I realized that prayer is probably the best gift that we can give to anyone.
Yes.
So, and so it really did lead me back to a relationship with God that I had kind of not had for a long time. And so I appreciate you just saying that, not that that's everyone's experience. I certainly met people along my cancer journey who were very angry, who were very bitter, and I just live differently, I guess. So,
but something, and the thing is, and it's okay, their bitterness, their anger, they have every right to feel that way. And that was one of the things that I think helped me in my journey. The support group that I went to at the reconstructive cancer group that I went to is that Molly is her name, Molly Sugarman, and she's a breast cancer survivor. And in the group session, she would tell us like each individually to speak. And yes, say F cancer, speak your truth. How you really feel. She said, because you hold in this anger, feeling that you shouldn't say it, but why not? Why shouldn't you say it? You weren't expecting this. It's not something that, you foresaw in your journey. And this is why she said to us, cancer is a unique journey for each person that goes through it. Some people, we will have some similar experiences, but it is yours. And don't ever let anybody diminish or minimize your voice, where that journey is for you, what it meant for you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what is important, to acknowledge that it's Harriet's journey is Harriet's journey. Patrice's journey is Patrice's journey. And that journey is going to be, everybody's journey is going to be theirs. And they have the right to express it, how it has impacted on them.
Yeah, I'll say that probably, I want to say for at least the first year of the diagnosis and treatment, and then, going through recovery, I was probably on autopilot. Like when I thought about my cancer, it was almost like a non-thought, because I was just like, how did this even happen to me? And
right.
Since I couldn't wrap my human brain around, because I kept thinking, what did I do? What could I have done differently? I ate the right foods. I drank water all the time. Like I did all of these different things. What could I have done differently? And I definitely started therapy because that was really crucial in my process.
Yes.
But I feel like, at the end of, or maybe even as I'm continuing to process through all of it, right? I came to a place of, of just acceptance and being okay with the fact that it is, and I don't have to know all of the reasons, because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and the process that I go through is exactly what I needed to go through. I want to say that it took me 2 years almost to accept, like post diagnosis, to accept that I had a pretty serious stage of cancer, right? And as a result, it's had some long term, like forever kind of impacts on my life. But
Yes.
But like, you know, like Patrice said, like whatever process you go through is a valid process. I remember so for me, the worst part of the treatment was actually radiation, because radiation is very lonely. I mean, you know, like when they put that thing on you or nothing at all, and then they leave the room, and you're in a room and it's white and it's quiet and everything is white, and then the machine comes over you, and then, you know, and so it's like a very lonely feeling, and it only lasts a few minutes, but it's enough. It's enough.
It felt like an eternity.
It does. And I remember sitting in the lobby the first couple of times, and there was this woman who became a friend of mine. Her name was Sister Pat. She was a nun, and she was just the happiest bald lady I had ever met in my life. I'm like, what's her deal? Like, is she naturally bald? Does she work here? Is she a patient? What is she doing, right? So after the first couple of times of seeing her there, and I'm miserable every time I go to radiation, miserable. And I'm like, every time I see her, she'd just be just full of joy. And so finally, I asked one of the staff, I'm like, who is that lady? And they're like, oh, that's Sister Pat. And I was like, does she work here? Like, what does she do here? And they're like, oh, you should go talk to her. And I was like, why can't you just tell me? So I went and I talked to Sister Pat, and her joy was just infectious. Like, and she was going through radiation too. You know? And, you know, and so and I was really struggling at the time with like all of the things, like, why did this happen? What am I going to do? What is the future going to look like? Am I going to die? You know, all of these things, like, what if it doesn't work? What if it comes back? I mean, I couldn't prevent it the first time, so how can I prevent it again? You know, like all of the stupid thoughts that go through your head, you know, on repeat because you're human. And she took me out to lunch, and you know, and she exposed me to a different version of what my cancer could be, like a different possibility. Just because, you know, she had this like incredible servant heart that I think is fairly rare in someone who is actually going through treatment themselves. Wow. And I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, those is definitely some life lessons we can learn that you could apply in anything. You know, we cancer is like, I can't even imagine, but we can also kind of think about in other struggles and other areas that we have in life. And so that's great. That's wonderful that you had that light, you know?
I call cancer the gift that keeps on giving.
Okay.
Because it does. It's new surprises.
In spite of the ugly word that it represents.
Yeah.
So it brings me to my third question, which you kind of touched on it, Harriet, and but I'm going to ask it anyway. What was the most difficult part of your journey, and how did you overcome it? You did say you said that radiation was the hardest, but I don't know if you would label that as the hardest part of your journey. And there's that word journey that Patrice is referring to. So what would you say was the hardest part, and how did you overcome it?
You know, I think that's a really good question. I don't know. Like, I think probably the most difficult part was the diagnosis itself. I think, so, you know, I know a little bit about, you know, what a cancer cell looks like versus a cyst, because I had so many of them. And when I did, you know, I did a, I forgot what it was called.
Go behind you.
I don't know, they did some exam, can't remember what it was, but it, you know, you end up with an image of it. And ultrasound, I think, or something along those lines. Anyway, and so, you know, I see the image on the wall, and I'm like, oh, in my heart, like in my brain said, that's not a cyst. Because it was, you know, I could see the shape of it. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't round the way a cyst looks. And I was like, that's not a cyst. But, you know, still the brain denies that, right? And so, so I said to the technician, I was like, that's not a cyst, is it? And she, you know, they're like, you know, they're sworn to secrecy. They can't talk to you. They have to wait for a doctor to come into the room to say the thing that you already know. And then, so she was like, I'm going to go get the doctor, and, you know, and he can talk to you about your results. So she comes back into the room and she holds my hand, and he goes into a corner of the room where his back is to me. And he looks up at the film, and then he goes, like, without even looking at me, yeah, you have cancer. And, you know, and
wow.
And I, you know, she squeezed my hand at the moment, because I guess she knew that he was going to be an a-hole. So she squeezed my hand. And I, you know, so that's something to be aware of, is that not all doctors understand the Hippocratic Oath in the same way, right? So, like, you know, when you say do no harm, right? That's harmful, that's damaging to someone. I think that particularly as women of color, I think that there are experiments that people like to do on our bodies, right? And so, and there are times when we don't get the same kind of medical care and treatment that people who don't look like us get, right? And so I think that all of those things combined made that a truly horrible experience for me. I would say that the way that I was able to really get over it was therapy. My therapist did what is it, EMDR, I think it is. You know, like, and it's a specific type of treatment that helps to, like, break a certain mental pattern that you have around specific incidents. And so that, like that, and it was an immediate fix. Like, I'm not triggered by it in the same way. And so, like, yeah, for me, I would say that was the worst.
Wow. Patrice, would you like to respond to that?
So the worst part of cancer journey for me was the aftermath of the surgery. You know, I realized, and I applied it to every surgery that I've had, and that, y'all know I've had quite a few. But the first time they do the bilateral mastectomy, and Harriet, I don't know if you did a bilateral mastectomy or not, whether you did one or both, but the doctors don't tell you what to expect after. And that gave me the recognition and the understanding that they just practice what they know how to practice. They don't know how to tell the patient to be prepared for the aftermath.
Right.
And breast cancer surgery, bilateral mastectomy, is a really hard recovery period. You go into it blindly, they're going to take off your breast. So emotionally, you're already damaged, you're a wreck, because, you know, you're going to wake up not knowing how you're going to look. And they don't explain to you that you're basically an invalid afterwards. You can't lift nothing. You can't raise your arm up. All you can do is go like this. And that's literally keeping your arms at your side and bringing your hand to your face. You can't do the basic things, the things we take for granted. Using the bathroom, you know, wiping your backside. You can't do none of that. You can't comb your hair. Everything you do takes an ounce of energy that feels like you're lifting a ton. And that if you don't have a circle of people who are committed to you and love you to support you through it, it's hard to make it. It's a very emotionally, physically draining journey. It is hard. I encourage anybody, if you have a loved one going through any type of cancer, but I can only speak on breast cancer for sure, they need all the support they can get, because you literally can do nothing for yourself. You can't bathe yourself. Your chest hurts, breathing becomes difficult because they scrape off the fat off the walls of your chest, because that's what your breast is, it's fat. And you got to heal. And the hardest part of your body to heal is your insides. So mental depression, calling my pastor, I want to die. I can't do it. You're in a dark place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Wow.
I cry because it's like, not just for myself, but because there's so many women out there who silence their voice. And like Harriet said, like, I don't want to ask nobody for no help, you know, and knowing you need it. And that if you don't get it, listen, suicide, contemplating suicide, it's real. It's real.
Well, thank you for sharing.
I wanna just say, add some, like maybe put a point on something that Patrice just said that I think is really important for people to know. And this is not, I mean, this is true in general, but specifically with diseases like cancer, because of the long-lasting impact. Just because we are up, dressed, and walking around today does not mean that we're okay, right? So like, I feel like, you know, when in the 3 months or so that you're like going through, you've gotten the diagnosis and you're going through treatments and all that stuff, people show up, right? But it's after that like the real stuff really kicks in, because the procedure is literally only the beginning of the process, right?
Yes.
The procedure is like the thing that they have to do to stop whatever's happening, right? And all of the healing is when bad things can happen, right? So like, you know, the depression, additional injuries, because doctors don't explain. Like my doctor said to me, this is the instructions that my doctor gave to me. You're gonna love this. My doctor said to me, so, you know, we removed 6 lymph nodes from under your arm. So be careful that you don't get lymphedema. What the heck does that mean? What does that mean? What should I do? Like, that's all he said. And then he was ready to walk away. And I said, well, what's lymphedema? And so, you know, he gave me some little airbrushed explanation. And then he goes, and I said, well, how do I prevent this from happening? And he's like, well, you don't want to put any pressure on your arm. Well, I go to sleep. I don't know about y'all, but I roll around. Sometimes there's weight on my body, on my arm, because whatever position I'm in, right? Like, so should I just stand still? Should it be in a sling? Like, what should I do? The other part is, because I have lymphedema. and so the other part is, doctors receive about 15 minutes of instruction in medical school about lymphedema. 15 minutes of 4 years of instruction, right? They know zero about it. I've been hospitalized 5 times for systemic infections as a result of my lymphedema. The first time there was a Doogie Howser who was trying to diagnose me with a totally different kind of cancer, scared the bejesus out of me. The next 2 or 3 times they were like, did you just have a baby? Because it starts as a mastitis. And I'm like, Could you read my chart? The last time I had a doctor who was literally like, are you sure that's what it is? Because I don't really think you know what you're talking. Like, I literally was like, if you don't stop talking to me today, I'm gonna punch you in the face because I ain't always been saved, right? So like, but like these are the stressors that you go through, right? Yeah. Because you don't have complete information. I think Patrice said this earlier, you literally have to be your own advocate, and that means that you have to know all of the things, right? And that's a huge burden to carry. And I think that's the place where family and loved ones really can step in to help like carry and share that burden.
And you know, wow. the thing is what, to touch on what Harriet said with the lymphedema, I wasn't told as well. And I only had 2 lymph nodes removed. And they were like, well, you probably won't get lymphedema because it's only 2 lymph nodes we took out. Well, let me tell you, like she said, they don't know diddly squat because I have lymphedema. My worst one is on the right side, which is the side that I had the cancer. So whether they take 1 lymph node, 2 lymph node, 3 or 4,
you're at risk.
You're at risk for lymphedema.
Wow, you guys are giving me a whole education here. I never even heard of lymphedema.
Well, it's your body's inability to stabilize the fluid that builds up. So you.
Well, I know lymph nodes are pretty important. A pretty important a part of our system. What is it? Our
drainage. It's the way that our body gets all of the yuck out of it.
Yes. So ladies, you know, I didn't think I was going to cry today. I thought this was going to be like, yes, we're doing great. We're survivors.
No, you know, I mean, with you every day.
So insightful. So I'm going to just ask you the last question. I love the way this organically, you know, how the direction it took. It wasn't what I expected, but it's so much better. It has such, in many ways, exceeded my expectations. And, you know, I just feel like I feel closer, and, you know, I'm glad that you're willing to share this part of your life with us. So the last question is, what advice would you give on how to best support a loved one going through breast cancer?
Harriet?
I mean, anything is good. A phone call, a visit, a card, ginger candy, ginger
drive.
Yeah, like anything.
You can't drive.
Yeah.
You can't drive. Mm-mm. You're a complete invalid.
Yeah, I was literally stuck in my bedroom for a few weeks. I couldn't really do anything. So yeah, I mean, people gave me like the weirdest things, like, but I loved every single thing. Like one of my best friends. So when I went through chemo, of course, all my hair fell out. I had my first chemo a week before my 45th birthday. And so I literally was like, I just want to have hair. And my hair had started falling out like about a week or a couple of days after the chemo. And I'd always wanted a mohawk. So I decided to let go of all of the hair on the sides and gently braid the top so that I could have a mohawk. But as I was like doing this, my hair is falling out in my hands, and my best, and I'm like panicking, right? Like I am full on about to have a panic attack. And my best friend had come to visit, and she just happened to walk upstairs past my room to go to the bathroom. And she looked in the room, and I hope this is just adults on the call, but she looks in the room and she sees I'm sitting on my chair and I'm like literally doing this, and piles of hair are just falling on the floor. She looks in the room, she goes, that looks like a pile of pubes. And then she just walks away. but it was like exactly what I needed in that moment, because it literally broke, you know, whatever it was that I was like, that sort of like thinking, that manic thinking. And I fell out laughing. Like I must have laughed for like a good 5 minutes, but it was exactly what I needed. And that's what I'm saying, like anything that you can do that demonstrates that you see them, that you care, like anything.
Drop off breakfast, drop off lunch, drop off dinner, anything. Like she said, anything is everything to somebody going through cancer. And let me say this before you close out. I don't know how you're going to close out. In the Black community, there's definitely not enough support system set up and available for women of color. I encourage you to be that support, because my focus now is to help as much women as possible going through the journey, because it's not easy, no matter the complexion of our skin, no matter our demographic background, where we come from. It's a hard journey to go through and not have the support we need. There's a lot of foundations out there available, and I'm not talking about American Cancer Society or these big corporations that's making money. I'm talking about the little ones that actually provide a service. In New York, there's the Daisy Project, where they will give you money to help you pay bills. People don't understand. Cancer journey is also a financial burden.
Absolutely.
Where people can't even afford to pay their rent, buy food, do anything. And they are already suffering with the healing aspect. And then there's life. Life doesn't stop. Nobody cares that you've just had 6, 7 surgeries and that you're struggling to make it. And the thing is, if you go to a doctor, ladies, there's what you call nipple sparing mastectomies, where they do not have to take your nipples off. They can reconstruct your breasts and keep it looking the way you're used to looking in the mirror. You don't have to deal with these old-fashioned doctors that tells you, and like Harriet says, I pray it's all adults on this panel. I think my niece, who went through breast cancer before I did, and she said the surgeon said to her, "They're just nipples." She says, "Well," she said, "your balls are just balls. Let's snip them off."
I love it. I love it.
He said, "I got it. You're right."
Yes,
And
yes.
The other thing that we have to remember is that
you have to have a surgeon who cares.
Yeah, that when women are going through breast cancer, especially like younger women, you know, like we're seeing women being diagnosed in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s.
Yes, younger than that.
It used to be like a 60-something-year-old disease, right? And so now that profile has shifted to a younger demographic, these are women who are having children, who have children.
Yes.
Who then, on top of having usually young children, I mean, if you're in your 40s, your kids are younger, right? Like they're like 10, 12, right? So like if you're parenting at all, then you also have that additional responsibility of making sure that your kids are okay. And that's something that isn't spoken about at all, like in the whole process. Like no one says, well, here's how you should talk to your kids, or here's how you can help your children process through it, because your children, like my daughter is 25 and, she's just now beginning to talk about the impact of, walking through cancer with me. And she was like in high school, beginning high school when I had it. So, that's 10 years, of her not necessarily getting to talk about it in the way that or like even just being able to find words to talk about it, because watching your mom sick, is really, really scary. But the other thing that I just want to add, I just want to put a little, I know that this isn't necessarily directed at men, but men can get breast cancer too. And so if there's a man in your life that you love, your son, your husband, your father, your boo, like whoever they are, they need to be checking their tatas as well.
Very interesting. I knew that, but I didn't even know that to check it. Like, how do they do that?
And when we do ours.
Yeah.
How could they with a mammogram? If you have
no, like a self-exam, like they can go.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
And, and the thing is, if they do have a lump, get it checked out. They'll give them a mammogram.
Okay, got it. Well, ladies, thank you so much, Sestras. You know, we what to ask you because you guys are just living your best lives, and you wouldn't even know. Like I wouldn't know if I didn't know. And so, you know, there's several women. We have several Sestras that are just living making the most out of life. And sometimes you even see women who they're doing more things than they would have done. They're taking advantage. You know, I have a sister who she was not able to make it today, but she was, you know, and later she'll share her story. But I mean, she's doing the most. She joined
yes, she is.
A rowing club, and she just came back from Australia, and it's a rowing club for cancer survivors, and it's an international organization, and they have all kinds of competitions, and she's really living her best life. And so it's great to see that you're an inspiration, you know, your motivation after you've gone through all that, and you still are living and helping and sharing and giving, you know, that's what Session Now is about, you know, and that's the community that we're trying, the community of support, that if you don't even have a biological sister, and there are many women who don't even have a small circle, and that's the kind of community that we're building here. We love each other, we care, and we're so glad that we're sure that your story is going to encourage and inspire many women. So
there are questions, Annette, before you
end. Questions? Oh, yeah, we have 3 more minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, there were like some comments in the chat. I just want to read through it before we wrap up. Okay. Carol says, we need to encourage our young women to get screened. So yes. This is something that we're going to do, you know, via Sestra Now. We need to maybe include this. We have to decide which group or team to include this in, maybe the caretaker team, but ongoing support for people who have different types of, you know, diseases that impact women mostly. And then someone says, Princess says it's only screening is only available at a certain age unless there's gamely history. Congress still hasn't passed a law. And Carol says it's covered 100% under preventative care. Yes, no copay, and it's annual unless you have cystic breast. Then they'll cover for twice a year along with the ultrasound. You can, Charlene says you can get it at any age. My mother had breast cancer in her 80s. So anyone, you want to comment on that? Like the timing of the screening? You guys
from what I understand, it depends, I think, what state you're in, but there's a lot of states that are offering screening to younger women, regardless of whether or not there's a history. Because like I said, cancer can come on any given moment to anybody. And one of the only things I may suggest is that, you know, the way they test for cancer is glucose water. Because when they add the cells to the glucose water, it multiplies, and that's how they detect it. So my advice is that one of the things that we can do is definitely monitor your sugar intake, especially white refined sugar. There's a lot of chemicals in that stuff, and we just need to watch our intake.
So I'll segue into the next comment. Carol says, eating too much chocolate can also cause breast pain. Do you guys agree with that? Carol says, my best friend's daughter-in-law passed at 40 with breast cancer. Sorry to hear that, Carol. And left 2 children, 11 and 5. So it is critical to get that mammogram. She was diagnosed in her 30s. And then they say, thanks for sharing your story, Carol says to the both of you. And then Princess says, my sister-in-law found out this last year and had both breasts removed recently and is recovering. Another friend was in remission for 15 years and it came back and is currently doing chemo since the beginning of the year, but she keeps going.
Let me interject on that comment right there that you said. One of the things that I love my surgeon, I call him my angel. He says, Pat, no breast fat, no breast cancer. What some surgeons are not telling women is that breast cancer is strictly to breast fat. I've had 9 surgeries and I finally got a surgeon that was able to reconstruct me with fat from my legs because I didn't have body fat anywhere that they could take. And I have been fine. I've had several mammograms. Everything's still good. And the other thing about breast cancer is that when they diagnose you with breast cancer, please, ladies, it's important to remember to tell them what you're allergic to. I forgot to tell them that I'm allergic to metal. And when they put those expanders, I developed an infection and was back in the OR within 30 days of having that major surgery. So please be sure to give all the information that you know on your health history.
Yes. There was a question about, Stephanie, there was a question if there was any resources in the Hampton Road area. So we're going to, yeah. So what we'll do is, since our time is up, we can try to do some research go over the comments and the questions and try to follow up with you on that. I
will share information on New York area support groups. There's a lot in Long Island.
Okay. So if you would please do that in the chat, that would be good. Yeah. So thank you, ladies. Have a beautiful evening, and we look forward to sharing and growing with you through Sestra Now. Good night.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys so much for being transparent. We appreciate you. Thank you, Sestras.
Okay. Have a good
night, everyone.